I wanted to make a video on what Muslims call the straight path. So every Muslim who prays will say the chapter Fatiha, and in that chapter there is a line, "Ihdina siratul mustaqeem," guide us on a straight path. So every Muslim prays for this many times a day, and it is important to understand what this is. This is actually defined in the Quran, chapter 6, verses 151 to 153. Prophet Muhammad is instructed to say the following. These verses start with the command say. So God is instructing him to say this, and you can rest assured that he actually said it. He says, "Come, let me tell you what your Lord has made forbidden for you, that you should associate anything with him, and do good to your parents, and do not kill your children out of fear of poverty. We provide for you and for them. And do not approach fawahisha, which is sexual immorality, because God calls homosexuality fawahisha and fornication and adultery fawahisha in the Quran. Like zina is fawahisha and homosexuality is fawahisha. So God says, and do not approach fawahisha, whether it be concealed or out in the open. And do not kill a soul that God has made forbidden, except for the requirements of justice. These are his commandments to you that you may understand. And do not approach the property of an orphan except in the most righteous manner, and give full weight and measure when you trade with justice. We do not burden a soul beyond its ability. And when you speak, be just, even if it's against your own family, and keep your deal with God. These are his commandments to you that you may be mindful." And it finishes with, "And this is my straight path, so follow it, and do not follow any other paths, for they will lead you away from his path. These are his commandments to you that you may have taqwa, that you may be careful of your duty." So he says this to people, and then he ends it with, "This is my siratul mustaqeem." So Prophet Muhammad is saying to people that this is his straight path. So this is the basis of religion. Without this, if you don't do these, you are not on the straight path. If you do not master these behaviors, you are not on the straight path. No matter what you do, if you are not doing this, you're not there. You can't be on the straight path without walking on the straight path. And these simple actions is what comprise the straight path. So I'm going to run back through them and try to maybe give a little bit of explanation. So, and do not associate partners with God, basically. So God is God. This is the commandment to oneness of God. Even as Prophet Jesus, the Messiah, says in the Bible, when they ask him about the greatest commandment, he says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." This is essentially the same thing, but it's saying this is the straight path, and the God is one. And then it goes on to say, "And do goodness to your parents." So this is a little bit, this is expanded a little bit upon in the Quran. For example, in the 17th chapter, we are told what this is basically. So God says in the 17th chapter, "If one or both of your parents reach old age with you, do not say to them as much as oof, nor yell at them, nor chide them, nor criticize them, basically. But address them with respect, and be humble towards them, and say, 'Our Lord, please have mercy on them, for they raised me when I was a child.'" Now, a lot of times people do have difficulty with treating their parents as they should be treated, and they really need to focus on that because these people deserve respect. So if you aren't treating your parents right, and you are even saying oof to them at some point, then you have a problem which you need to fix. And nobody's perfect, but you need to fix this problem. That's the whole point of understanding what the straight path is. Um, the Of course, "And do not kill your children out of fear of poverty. We provide for you and for them." This, at that time, people would bury their children alive. In our time, we don't wait for them to be born. Basically, we kill our children by the hundreds of thousands. We call it abortion, but what it is in fact is killing. And I'm not gonna try to say I am pro-choice or pro-life. I honestly don't care. I just want people to know that this is in fact killing. If a life wants to exist, if you have to intervene to stop a life from living, which is what we call abortion, intervention to stop life, then it is killing life. And if we kill a human life, then we are killers. So whether you want to do it or not is irrelevant to me, as long as you know that you are killing a child. And God says, don't do that. Then fawahisha. So like I said earlier, God calls homosexuality fawahisha, and God calls zina fawahisha, which can mean either adultery or fornication. And if you are doing these, you are not on the straight path. You have to stop this. So if you look at, for example, if you consider yourself a normal, semi-practicing Muslim, and you cannot fathom how there can be homosexuals in a mosque, understand that they're to God, you might as well, you're the same. God calls zina fawahisha, and God calls us homosexuality fawahisha. It's the same thing. You will be treated the same. So you really have to consider that. So don't be so quick to judge others. The next one is, of course, treatment of the orphans. So God says, and do not approach the property of an orphan except in the most righteous manner. These are the weakest members of our society, and most susceptible to abuse. So this is a huge one, of course, and in our time, this could probably apply to people who work in orphanages and as foster parents. So, but it is very, very important. We have to treat orphans correctly, because they are indeed the weakest members of our society. Justice in commerce is a huge one. God says, and give full weight and measure with justice. Basically, that is talking about commerce. Weight and measure is you are trading, and there are several other verses in the Quran. There's actually a people who were destroyed because they were corrupt in commerce. They had corrupt business practices, and they were cheating each other. I forgot exactly which city that was given as an example in the Quran, but it is in the Quran, and they were destroyed. So it is very important, if you consider yourself a Muslim, to be honest in business. You cannot cheat people in business no matter what. If you do that, you are not on the straight path, and you will never be, and nothing can expiate you from walking on a straight path. Like I said, this is the basis of religion. This is religion. This is a straight path, and you won't be perfect in it, but if you make a mistake, you have to realize you made a mistake and immediately correct it. These are characteristics that have no equivalent. You will not ever walk on the straight path without mastering these to a certain degree. None of these can be acceptable to you. Of course, you may make mistakes, but none of these can be acceptable to you, and they can definitely not be a pattern of your behavior. Otherwise, you are doomed. If you are not walking on the straight path, then you are not walking on a path to heaven, and you are going to go to hell, no matter who tells you otherwise. And when you speak, be just. Commandment to justice. This is essentially the same thing as Jesus says in the Bible. The prophet Jesus says in the Bible that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So this is the definition of justice. This is the clearest definition of justice. And in the Quran, God expands a little bit upon this. For example, in the 4th chapter, 135th verse, God says, "O you who believe, stand firmly for justice as witnesses to God, even against yourselves or your own family, whether the accused is rich or poor, for God is near to them both. And do not follow your desires, lest you deviate. And if you decline, distort." So if you know the truth but don't want to say it, or you distort the truth, and God knows what you do. Your destiny is not where you think it is. If you are a Muslim, you cannot lie. You cannot lie. This is a requirement of justice and truth is justice. God says in the Quran, in 5th chapter, 8th verse, that even if you hate a people, even if let's say somebody has committed crimes against you, genocide or something, but you still have to stand for justice, even for that. That's how important justice is. And in reality, Dr. Martin Luther King said it best. Uh, Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So, as a Muslim, if you view yourself as a Muslim, you really have to stand firmly for this concept. And this is one that is very easily violated. For example, if we know that our family members did something, we have this natural urge to protect them and hide for them and cover for them. And we are not allowed that. That is specifically addressed in the Quran, like I said, even against yourselves or your family. And then, like I said, Prophet Muhammad says, and this is my siratul mustaqeem. So this is what you are praying for, to be guided on this, to master these traits. Without this, you are going nowhere. This is your religion. If you could literally spend a lifetime constantly thinking about this and trying to perfect it. And if you do, then you are one of those blessed by God. Of course, in the Quran, there are several other parts of the religion, but I would say that none are as important as this one. As a matter of fact, most of the cities that were destroyed in the Quran violated one of these precepts. And not only that, God also defines these precepts as wisdom in the 17th chapter. So it's all very, very, very important. This is your religion. You have to be this type of person, otherwise you aren't really Muslim. A Muslim means a person who submits, who obeys. So if you are, if you consider yourself that, you have to obey and you have to walk on a straight path, and you have to keep trying. Like I said, you will fail over and over, but you have to keep trying because God knows where your effort is. So, good luck. I hope that explains the topic adequately, and that's it.